My name is Mia Yates. I'm 23 years old and work from home. I have a kind older brother, 5 years my senior, who is currently engaged. His fiancée is named Natalie and she's 26 years old. Her personality is the complete opposite of mine. Whereas I'm not good with interacting with people, Natalie is very lively and easily makes friends. Natalie has already become close to our parents and often comes to our house alone. Today, too, she came without contacting us in advance. When the doorbell rang, my mom knew it was Natalie and greeted her with, "Welcome." Natalie came into the living room with my mom, saying, "I'm back." Then she looked at me with a baffled expression. "Mia, you're still at home?" She spoke without even greeting me. I replied, "I'm working from home," to which she retorted, "Enough with that, you need to get a job." Unable to argue, I decided to retreat silently back to my workspace. My room is a soundproof room, added to our existing house. I received permission from my parents and designated the layout myself. It's my favorite place. Of course, I paid for all these modifications myself. This room is my castle, so I keep it locked and don't let anyone in. To enter, one must unlock the soundproof door and open another door inside. As soon as I entered, I vented my frustrations, exclaiming, "I told her I'm working! Why does she make me repeat myself?" Since I couldn't say it directly to Natalie. Shouting until I felt relieved helped me to forget the unpleasantness. Around lunchtime, a small light bulb that serves as my bell in my room started to blink. Thinking it's probably time for lunch, I left my room and headed to the living room where lunch was already prepared at the dining table. My mom said, "Let's have lunch together," so I sat down at my usual spot, only to find Natalie sitting across from me looking displeased. "You get hungry even though you don't work. Don't you ever think about making your father and mother feel at ease? You're just like a parasite." I silently kept my head down and listened to Natalie's words. Once my parents sat at the table and said grace, I also said grace and started eating. Natalie seemed unhappy with my parents, who didn't scold me even though I didn't work. "Your father and mother are too lenient with you, Mia. I can't feel secure about marrying into this family if this continues." She continued eating her lunch angrily. My parents smiled and said, "Don't worry, just marry into our family." But Natalie didn't seem satisfied and continued to express her concerns to them. "I can't be reassured. What happens if you two can't take care of Mia anymore? Do you expect me or my future children to look after her?" She assumed I'd be a shut-in for life, leeching off others, so I stopped eating and hung my head low, mentally contradicting her claims. Seeing this, my mother told Natalie, "Mia does work, you know. Don't worry." But Natalie wouldn't stop. At 23, look at her appearance. Braided hair, thick glasses, and always wearing sweats. Who would believe she's working looking like this? Frustrated, I countered in a soft voice. "Appearance has nothing to do with work." This seemed to upset her even more, and she grew angrier. "Well, what kind of job do you do then? Say it," she demanded, glaring at me. I became so scared that I couldn't say anything. It was my mother who answered for me. "Only our family knows about Mia's job. I'm sorry, but we can't discuss it right now." Hearing this, Natalie stood up and stormed off, saying, "So I'm not in this family? Is that it?" I apologized to my parents for causing such a scene. My father reassured me. "Don't worry about it, Mia. Just do what you love," he said with a smile. I lightened my heart and I decided to continue with dinner. Over the meal, I proposed, "After my brother's wedding, I'll make sure I can tell Natalie about my job." My parents seemed to agree and their expressions eased up, saying, "That might be a good idea." After lunch, I started working again once the cleanup was done. In the evening, as usual, I went grocery shopping with my mom while my father tended to the vegetables in our garden, watering and preparing for harvest. When my mom and I returned from the supermarket, we found Natalie in tears in the living room, with my father seated beside her. Worried, my mom asked, "Natalie, what's the matter? Why are you crying so much?" Natalie clung to my mother and sobbed even harder, unable to speak. Seeing the troubled look on my father's face, I asked him what had happened. "I heard a loud noise from inside the house when I was in the garden. I rushed toward the sound." He trailed off, pointing to a crowbar and hammer lying on the table. Instantly, I realized it's my room and ran towards it. When I arrived at the front of my room, the door was badly damaged, as if someone had tried to force it open with a crowbar and a hammer. I was frozen in place, a mix of shock and fear gripping me. Then my father contacted my brother who lived in the company dormitory. Seemed that my brother promised to rush over after his work, so I told my father, "I'll stay in my room until my brother arrives," and decided to calm down in my room. After settling down in my room, I called my company and was able to get permission to inform my future sister-in-law, who would soon become part of our family, about the nature of my job after their marriage. Seeing the room light flicker, I figured my brother had arrived. When I left my room, I was surprised to see my brother already at the door and let out a gasp. With an apology, "Sorry to startle you," my brother said, not looking at me but at the door. I imagined he must have been shocked by what Natalie had done. When I told him, "Don't worry about it, I'll replace it myself," he responded, "No, that won't do. Natalie will compensate for this." Taking my hand, my brother led me to the living room where Natalie and my parents were. As soon as we entered, he addressed Natalie. "I had no idea you were capable of such violence." Everyone stared at my rarely angered brother. He demanded, "Apologize to Mia properly and compensate for the door." Natalie began to apologize tearfully to my brother, saying, I'm sorry, but my brother snapped, "The apology is not for me," and glared at her fiercely. I told my brother it's okay now, but my brother didn't take his eyes off Natalie. Natalie turned to me, knelt down, and apologized. "I won't do something like this again. I will compensate for it." I accepted her apology and decided to put the incident behind me. But I wanted to know why this had happened, so I asked Natalie. She replied, "I thought if I didn't have a place to hide, I would have to work." Hearing this, I wondered whether I should tell her about the nature of my job before the wedding, which troubled me. However, it would go against company policy, so I decided not to say anything for now. Tense atmosphere between my brother and Natalie bothered me, so I brought out 2 live concert tickets from my room and handed one to each of them. Looking at the tickets, Natalie exclaimed, "These are for Aim's concert," and turned bright red with excitement. She turned to my brother and said, "Let's go." Her face was filled with joy. My brother asked me, "Are you sure? These are hard to get." When I replied, "I happened to get them. You can use them as a peace offering if you'd like." My brother also looked delighted. Seeing them so happy made me feel joyous too. From there, the good vibes returned as before. Everyone was able to forget about the damaged door and enjoy their meal. On the day of the live concert, while I was out, it appears that Natalie had excitedly visited my house to express her gratitude to me. Since I, who is usually home, wasn't there, Natalie seemed to say to my parents, "Enjoy." Finally, Mia has decided to work outside, and it was a great day, the concert was great, and since Mia decided to start working, I'm happy, before she left. After the concert, I received a call from my brother who had separated from Natalie due to a company drinking party. My brother was thrilled, saying, "The concert was great," and continued that Natalie is actually a huge fan of AIM and has always mentioned not being able to secure the once-in-a-year concert tickets. He also mentioned that she was extremely excited to have been able to see AIM, her longtime wish, at the concert. On the way home, she seemed to have returned happily, saying, "She was adorable, she was beautiful, and her songs and lyrics were amazing." When I said, "I'm glad we made up," my brother replied, "The soundproof door we paid for as compensation cost $7,000, it seems. to which I responded, "That sounds about right." He was taken aback and exclaimed, "That's expensive." I explained to him that since it was a soundproof room I put a lot of effort into, all the components were pricey, which surprised him even more. Natalie was said to have mentioned, "The $7,000 expense hurt, but the concert made up for it." As for me, the door will be fixed, and since my brother and his friends are getting along, I felt really good about giving the ticket. However, Natalie, who still doesn't understand my work-from-home job, thought I started working outside after the concert and was happy. The moment she realized her mistake, she started calling and visiting my house daily, telling me to get a job. I was hoping to endure it until the wedding ceremony, but things only seemed to escalate. Even if I didn't want to see her until the wedding, Natalie frequently pushes the call light switch to my room. Being summoned, I leave my room and go to the living room, where she nags me with, "Get a job before the wedding," and "I don't want a jobless NEET in the family." To distract Natalie, I hand her AIM merchandise like mascots in file cases that I received from my previous company. At first, Natalie received her favorite AIM goods without question, but eventually she started to wonder and asked me, "Why do you have so much AIM merchandise?" Reluctantly, I replied, "A friend who works in relation with AIM's company gives them to me." Upon hearing this, she smiled and her mood improved even more as she said, "Please get me more tickets next time." However, there's still a problem. She seems to want more merchandise and started making a fuss about being allowed into my room, causing me trouble. I managed to stop her a few times, but I was worried that she might break the door again, so I mustered up the courage to give her a stern warning. "Natalie, if you break the door again, it won't just be the door fee this time. Last time I paid for the repairs. Next time you will be the one paying." Upon hearing this, Natalie's face turned pale. I wonder if she really was planning to do it again, I thought to myself. All I could do was hope that the wedding ceremony would be over soon so I could be free. Even after that, until the wedding day, there was never a day when Natalie visited and the call light didn't flash. I can't count how many times I shouted, "Enough already!" in my room. I tried talking to my brother about it, but he was in a resigned mode, saying, "I've told Natalie over 100 times that Mia's working, but she doesn't seem to listen to me." In my mind, I told my brother, "Hey, you should get angry, like when she broke my door." But there was no hope in relying on my brother, who had said he was busy, finishing up a ton of work before the wedding. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to go on the honeymoon. So I had no choice but to give up. Then finally, it was the day before the wedding. As expected, it seemed that both of our parents would spend the day before the wedding together, so we had a fun night reminiscing and looking at albums of us when we were young, with the 4 of us family members together after a long time. When I mentioned, "When I get married, my brother will have his own family, so it'll just be the 3 of us with our parents on the day before the wedding. It's a bit lonely." My brother replied, No, I'll come here and spend the day alone on that day." I was glad he said that. In that calm space, my brother's cell phone rang. It was a call from Natalie. When my brother answered the phone, it seemed she asked to speak with me, and he handed me the phone, saying, "Natalie wants to talk to you." When I answered the phone, she said, "Hey, something's up with AIM. She's making a big announcement tomorrow. Ask your friend who gives you the merchandise what it's about. What if she's quitting or going on hiatus?" Apparently, AIM's agency had announced on social media that there would be a major announcement tomorrow. I didn't want to be disturbed during my relaxing time with my family, so I said, "I don't know," and hung up the phone. Brother seemed to feel the same way and turned off his cell phone. When our father said, "We have to get up early tomorrow, let's go to bed now," my brother began to bow deeply and said, "Father, Mother, thank you for taking care of me so long. From now on, I will be happy with Natalie." Mom quickly responded, "That's what women do when they get married." When my brother said, "Really?" Our family ended the night before the wedding with a big laugh. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. I told my family that I would be a little late in the morning, and my parents and brothers went ahead to the venue. When I arrived at the venue a little later, I went to the waiting room to convey my congratulations to Natalie and knocked on the door. There, Natalie, the beautiful bride, was sitting alone, fully prepared. The moment I was about to say my congratulations, the beautiful bride turned into a demon and said, "Hey, I still had something to say yesterday when you hung up the phone." I apologized, and when I asked what she wanted, she said to me, "You can go home now." I said, "But it's my brother's wedding." And she said, "I've been telling you this for a long time. Why didn't you get a job after all I've said? I don't want people to think you're part of the family." And I tried to say, "But..." Natalie walked up to me and got close to my face and said, "If I say go home, you go home," and closed the door with all her might. Feeling dejected, I retreated to a separate room that had been reserved for me. There, I had my makeup and hair done by professionals and changed into the cocktail dress I had bought for the wedding, preparing for my brother's wedding that I would not be attending. In the midst of this, I received a call from my parents. I explained the situation to them, assuring them that although I wouldn't be at the ceremony, I still intended to celebrate. Then, the wedding ceremony that I was absent from began. I decided to watch the event on the venue's monitor to get a sense of being there. There was a moment when my brother looked for me and I nearly broke down in tears. But I told myself, it's a day for celebration, not tears, and continued to watch and bless the event. After the entertainment was over, the female MC said, "We have a celebration video for the stars of today's show. Please look at the monitor." The room darkened and a video started playing on the monitor. The room erupted in screams of delight. The image on the screen was of Aim, whom Natalie loved so much, and then shared a congratulatory message. "Yes, in truth, I am Aim. Congratulations on your marriage, brother and Natalie." Natalie looked surprised and turned to my brother. He seemed to be saying, "That's Mia. I've been eagerly awaiting this day, but I'm sorry I couldn't attend due to urgent matters." After giving a false excuse for my absence, I shared a simple congratulatory message, then revealed, "Natalie, I'm sorry I never told you that I'm part of your new family. However, I've decided to work overseas. We probably won't see each other in the future, so feel free to pretend we're not family. Oh, and I wasn't a shut-in. I was working in my home studio." Although I let a bit of sarcasm slip, I ended my message saying, "I wish you happiness." I'm a singer-songwriter named Aim who gained popularity on social media. My stage name, Aim, is my real name, Mia, spelled backward. I worked from home, recording songs and writing music after joining a talent agency. When the lights came back on, all eyes were on Natalie. She was as pale as a ghost and looked utterly dumbfounded. Once my job was done, I left the venue with the hair and makeup artists and other staff. Later on, my brother called. Apparently, after we left, Natalie was supposed to thank the guests and see them off, but instead, she was running around the venue looking for me. When she found I had already left, she broke down crying in front of the folding screen. What's more, I heard from friends that she's now known as the bride who isn't considered family by Aim, and my speech from the wedding has gone viral on social media. I heard she regrets what she did and can't even go out in her neighborhood anymore.